the masters of the universe, the God men walking around thinking that they know everything that there is to know. There seems to be an abundance nowadays of the God complex among men and women. It's a strange kind of arrogance. It feels as if it's getting worse, but it's this tendency for people to be so sure of themselves, to be so comfortable in their expertise of something that they themselves struggled mightily to achieve, this even limited expertise. But when speaking to someone new, when teaching or, experiencing someone who's under them, maybe in some kind of corporate structure or even in your church in theological terms, or when someone's explaining a philosophy, they have this air of superiority. They have this sense of themselves, and it's a very seductive thing that a person can fall into, but they're also casting a spell on people with their confidence, or maybe even false confidence. Let's take a look at the archetype of the fool or the jester for a second. He's often depicted with an almost grotesque smile, and he was the servant of the king, very subservient capacity. But there's an aspect of the fool or the jester that is in itself, the image is a false one. He knows much more, or is capable of much more than maybe the purpose that he serves in the king's court. There's this sly smile that you see. It's very, you see it on the Mona Lisa and Da Vinci paintings, these subtle smiles and people have read into this and implied that there's some kind of secret knowledge there, but there's a lot of these depictions of jesters and fools that have this same sly, kind of subtle smile about them. But in Jungian terms, or the tarot, or any of that, the archetype of the fool has to precede the master. This archetype of the fool is something that we all have to embrace at one time or another on multiple levels in our lives. We will be in a situation where we don't know what's going on, and we are the fool. We can transcend that and change, but great damage is done when you try to skip that phase. And that is what a lot of human beings do. Hence this arrogance. You have to become the fool in order to get to the true mastery, to become a real master. And that is an elusive thing. In a world of 10 spatial dimensions, of which we only observe 3, and each of us being placed in a stream of flowing time that we don't understand. The past is not the present, neither are the future. It's this strange sandwich of flowing time, the past and the future, and we're sandwiched in this moment that even when we try to measure the present, it's unmeasurable. Now is never here. It's a great mystery. And in fact, we're surrounded by mysteries all the time. When you think in these terms, it's almost, it's an act of ultimate arrogance to form these kind of ideological raising. The emergence of these gurus who tell you that they have the world figured out. It's almost always BS. I want to draw your attention to a psychological effect, I think, that was discovered in 1999 called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a cognitive bias where people with low ability in like a certain area sort of overestimate their own ability and think that they're more than what they actually are. It happens a lot in, people who are new to learning a skill, a new job, new to ideas, religions, and people take advantage of that. It also accounts for the tendency of people who are truly capable to underestimate their abilities. They say that more intelligent people will be very filled with doubt, who doubt their own abilities. This is part of the Dunning-Kruger effect as well. What it has a lot to do with self-assessment. People will make a judgment on their own account, of their own attainment of skill or learning levels, especially in something new. And they think, when they've got a few pieces of the puzzle, they think, I've got this. And in flows the arrogance and the over-reliance on one's own abilities. There's this thing that we just constantly forget to do. And this is a piece of advice that I was just having a conversation about this. And it's about these gurus. It can be a guru. It can be a pastor at your church or members of your church. It can be, a trainer at work. It can be a new boss. It doesn't matter. We have a disease of cult of personality in America, North America, Western culture, where an individual comes forward with an idea and people are so ready to worship them. And they're just like, I remember the term woke before it was woke, back when it had more of a positive connotation. People would say, man, he's woke. It's somebody would come forward with start espousing some Eastern philosophical idea that wasn't really new, some stoicism or something, and everybody's like, man, he's woke. It was like this, and that's back when it was more of a positive term, rather than like something that the right has turned around and hijacked that term for an ideological kind of pejorative. There is this magic in an individual giving you new information, and in the moment that your mind is processing it, you can have a stimulative reaction, and a lot of emotions can be stirred. It's like they're casting a spell. It's easy to do this. People question why these hardcore cults can get people to fall under this spell, and it's very incremental. If you really read about how these people fall into it, if you can't look at that person's experience and say, hey, I just might be susceptible to that. If you can't admit that, admit that maybe you could be somewhat vulnerable to that, it's open season for you in culture, because I'm telling you, there are sharks swimming all around us with all kinds of ideologies. They want you to believe, we've got corporate bosses who want you to believe absolutely in their authority, and they do not like to be questioned. It's and a lot of these people are in a fake it till you make it type situation. I'm sorry, I hate to say that, but they don't know nearly as much as what they think. The pastor of your church does not have a solid grip on all ideologies, all inner workings of what's happening in their own state or country. It's so overly complex, but we should always surround ourselves with people who are more intelligent than us. But I think the mistake occurs when we become attached to the individual. Like I was saying with when someone brings around an old idea and it has like a modern twist to it, people flock to it. And I think we attach to the individual. And all of a sudden, instead of following the idea, digesting the idea, and seeing that thing is fluid, that idea is fluid. It applied to that individual in a completely different way that it can apply to you. Now, it appeals to you because you see the tenets of stoicism, to renounce worry and possession and other things like this, just as an example. But it may apply to you in such a specific, sharp way that you can't even see that. But flocking to the individual is a mistake, and not to delineate and make judgments. There's all kinds of information out there, authors, and I don't agree with any of them on every single thing but I can take those ideas, digest them, and apply them to other situations. You can take a specific individual or teacher and cling Cling to the idea, and I hate to say this, maybe you'll see this as a positive, or maybe this will terrify you, but in the grand scheme, relatively speaking, in the order of existence, we know nothing. No one knows everything. Find the truth in ideas, test them, let them bear fruit if they do. But if they don't, discard them, burn them. Let go of the individual. Don't listen to them anymore. Sometimes it comes down to that. But a lot of times we can continue to learn from this person even when they do say something we don't like. I'm not advocating for overjudgment, for someone to say something one little thing that you don't agree with, but just stay and continue to take in the good things and continue to discard the things that don't bear fruit. Just want to say this now. Every guru, every teacher, every celebrity that you look up to is susceptible to moments. Now, they may not be open to it. We are all subject to these moments of complete and total awe, wonder. I often think about what the universe actually is, all the things that there are to learn. I'm disturbed by the lack of respect, that immeasurably large body of knowledge that's just out there waiting for us to first acknowledge and second to dig through. It's the great mystery. The mysterium tremendum. It's a Latin phrase coined by theologian Rudolf Otto. He used this term to describe the awe-inspiring, tremendous experience, the divine or sacred, known as the numinous. It represents a holy other, not H-O-L-Y, but W-H-O-L-L-Y, just holy other. The mysterium tremendum represents an overwhelming mystery that causes fear, trembling, and humility in the presence of overwhelming power. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom. I believe that's the first verse in the book of Proverbs, or the book of wisdom. But this term that I'm talking about just encapsulates this feeling that I have. You know, this tremendum is describing an intense encounter with God. And I think that is sorely lacking in everything. Your job, your religion, your ideology, your friendships, family. There's something missing. It truly bothers me to walk into a church nowadays and instead of asking about certain aspects of spirituality and what you think, you're told to sit there, be quiet, and take in what we have. Now, I respect the fact that they're on their faith journey and their group has adhered to the Word of God, been truly seeking truth. But the closed-mindedness, a lot of times, is just something that I can't get beyond. And I'm not advocating confrontation, but sometimes these are necessary. And it may be necessary just to leave that church, to leave that place where these people are just not hearing what you have to say. And this is only when you have something sincerely to say. It's not, the whole process starts all over again if you just make it about your ego and coming in and wanting to throw your weight around, and you want to have a presence there. You want your voice to be heard. Those are all valid, issues, and you can work those out. But don't confuse those with this mysterium, this respect for the mystery of God. It applies to so much. And I apologize for the kind of generalness and kind of vagueness of this, but this has been hitting me from like 8 different angles. And I just wanted to put these things in a way that sort of covers all the territory, because I'm experiencing this on multiple levels all over the place, and I felt it's important to kind of speak on it. But a much more detailed, in-depth video will come later if you guys want that. But please, let me know if that's what you want, and like, subscribe, all of that. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I truly appreciate you hanging out for a bit, and I got plenty more on the way. So I will see you all in the next one.